the Department of Justice follow up with you in any regard prior to the dismissal of this particular lawsuit?
I had no contact.
They called me on a couple of different occasions to clarify comments in my statement, and also because there's another clip that we didn't see where I was actually interviewed on site, and they wanted to clarify something
Do you
there.
recall approximately when that was?
I was in short sleeves outside. I met him at a coffee shop, so it wasn't cold, so it would have had to have been late March, early April, I guess.
Okay. Mr. Bull, do you know?
I don't think I talked to them again after I signed my affidavit. I don't think so.
Were any of you advised by the Department of Justice of their intent to dismiss this lawsuit?
No, absolutely not.
All right. I think, Mr. Morrow, you testified, sorry, Mr. Bull, you testified, I believe, that on that election day in 2008, you had a report of several poll watchers being driven from the polls?
Yes, I could give you the addresses of polling places. I took notes on filing cards at each polling place. One was in West Philadelphia, 5501 Market Street, Community Center. We had trouble here earlier. Our poll watcher left intimidated. I wrote that down in quotes. Another one in West Philadelphia, 56th and Christian Street. Woman left hysterically after being intimidated. We have had this going on all over these neighborhoods.
And do you have any more detail to that? I mean, how were they intimidated and by whom?
I don't know, because I wasn't there at the time of the intimidation. We would get a call saying there's trouble here, will you go there? And I'd go there, try to collect the evidence, see if we could help. And they'd say that the poll watcher had left already. They've been driven out, and so I couldn't get their statement.
Okay, Mr. Bull, did you get involved in poll watching because you thought it was permissible to allow one or two people to be intimidated, but only if there were more than one or two was it time for Justice Department to step in?
Well, I didn't get involved for either A or B in your question. I got involved in this, as I have in perhaps 20 Democratic campaigns, because I think that we should make this as civil and democratic society as possible. I'm not getting involved in anticipation of the Department of Justice doing something.
Mr. Hill, you were about to say something.
I'd like to reiterate Mr. Bull's comment. We went to at least half a dozen polling places where poll watchers had been expelled from the building.
Yeah.
And I personally got both the Obama and the McCain poll watchers back into 3 polling places by just not refusing to leave. I had the 2 attorneys with me who gave me legal background on things, and then my Irish stubbornness just kept me there until I got those guys back in the building. This is more to me than just 2 guys standing outside a polling place. This is the fundamental right of the United States, and as I said in my statement about serving in the Army, everybody should get to participate. And it just drives me nuts that the Department of Justice doesn't take this as seriously as I think they should.
Absolutely.
And this is to maybe Mr. Morrow. Could you please, this is just a specific technical question, could you please describe the duties of an election observer or poll watcher? Is it, more specifically, in your experience, do poll watchers, regardless of for which party they're working, do they stand outside of an election or a polling place and simply stand there? Or how do they normally comport themselves?
If the role is to be, as my role was, to be an observer, which is to observe what is going on, what am I seeing, what am I hearing, is anyone, I can also receive a complaint that someone has been denied access to voting, or they have a question about where they should vote. That's what the role is, and if there is some kind of impropriety or some kind of inappropriate conduct, some kind of electioneering that's going on that's violates some federal statute, it's my obligation as an observer to call it into what I characterized earlier as headquarters and say, hey, there's an issue here, there's a problem, we may need to take action here. And action meaning, do we need to have further investigation? Do we need to start the process of moving for an injunction? That is what the process is. So purely on those legal procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill? Mr. Hill, you mentioned the possible intimidation of a poll watcher.
It was a possible intimidation, Mr. Commissioner.
Well, that's what I'd like you to expand upon, because I've served as counsel in a number of statewide elections, and I appreciate the importance of having poll watchers from both parties at every poll to ensure a level and balanced playing field.
Right on.
Two advocates aggressively arguing their point, we tend to get the right result. So I want to hear more about the poll watcher in particular at this precinct that you observed, what you observed, and what you reported about that aspect of this incident to the Department of Justice.
Initially, they said that the Black Panthers, I was told on the phone that the Black Panthers had threatened him personally. They said they were standing outside. They didn't mention at the initial phone call any voter intimidation. It was just that they had threatened the poll watcher. So that's why I headed straight into the building and didn't waste any time in the parking lot with him. When I found him, he wasn't quite cowering, but he was definitely shook up.
How old was this poll watcher?
I would say mid-50s.
Was he African American?
He was.
He was the Republican poll watcher?
He was.
Okay.
And he told me that he was called a race traitor by Mr. Shabazz, and was told he better not walk outside into the parking lot while they were there. And I said, well, I'm going back out to the parking lot. I mean, that got my Irish up. Like I said, that's not what this is supposed to be about. He said, are you gonna call police? I said, yeah. When I got outside, I called the police. I dialed 911. They said, we've already received 3 phone calls. Police are on their way.
Did you report this to the Department of Justice?
I did.
Was this part of the affidavit you submitted?
I don't,
This aspect of the incident, specifically with respect to the poll watcher?
I thought that I mentioned that, but with the redacted part in here, I'm not certain that it's actually in that statement.
As part of your organizing efforts, did you all assign poll watchers? In a lot of these statewide elections, you'll have a master list and you'll send a poll watcher, X, you go here.
Right.
Did you all keep a list of that nature so we could perhaps find this poll watcher?
I do not have a copy of that, but I know who does.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who does?
I'm sorry, but it's a natural thought. Who has that list? I'm sorry.
His name is Joseph J.D. Felice.
We already have that information.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I want to make sure you all have that information. Great.
Commissioner Yaki? Thank you very much, all of you, for being here today. Instead of opening it up to each one, I'm just going to go down each line, except I have questions. Mr. Hill, did you witness the defendants? Well, forget that. The fact of the matter is that I am not as concerned about whether or not relitigating the issue whether there's intimidation or not. In my opinion, there was intimidation.
There was?
There was intimidation, and in fact, what sort of bothers me about this entire proceeding has been the fact we keep on saying that justice dropped the charges, when the fact is that for Mr. Shabazz, the one with the Billy Club, the charges were not dropped, and now the judgment was entered against him. He is enjoined from being within 100 feet of any polling location for any election in any place in the city of Philadelphia through the presidential election of 2012. So for the record, it is important to note that the person who you've identified in this room today does have a civil injunction against him, prohibiting him from engaging in voter intimidation, and it's thanks to your affidavits that did it. So I don't want to get into that, but what I do want to get into is just a little bit about sort of what was some of the other stuff that was going on, because the greater allegation that seems to be being made is that there is some sort of concerted nationwide attempt or whatever by this by, as Commissioner Thurston described it, a fringe group